Hey guys, Matt Day here for KEH Camera, and today we're going to be getting back to basics and going over color filters for black and white photography. Color filters have been around for a long time and they're really simple. Basically, their job is to control the way colors are represented in a black and white image or a monochrome image. So in a black and white photo, you have true white and true black, and then all of these different scales of gray in between. And certain colors are going to fall in different areas of that spectrum based on the light. So if you're using a colored filter, it's going to affect the color that the filter is itself, any of those colors in the scene, and also the opposite of that as well. They have very different effects, and that's what brings you in that contrast. So it's really simple. I'm going to kind of show you guys all the different options and what those results are going to look like. The filters I have, they're all for this Rolleiflex 2.8F, and I have a few different ones here. I have a red filter, a yellow filter, and I have a green filter. And all of these do basically the same thing, they just have very different results. Color filters for black and white are usually very inexpensive, and KEH has a ton of them to choose from. I already had this yellow and red filter that came with my Rolleiflex when I bought it, and I wanted a green filter just to have basically a good scale of them so I could have opposite results basically, and they had this one in stock. They have all different kinds of filters that you're looking for. What they're going to do is put an emphasis on any colors in your scene that match your filter. It's going to make those colors appear a lot lighter in the term of, the different scale of gray that you have. So for instance, if I'm shooting with a green filter, I'm shooting, trees, any kind of foliage, things that have a lot of green tones to them. If I'm shooting with a green filter, it's going to make all of those things appear lighter than if I, wasn't shooting with a filter at all, because it's really focusing that light on the green colors there. And the same thing can be said for any other filter. So if I'm shooting with a red filter and there's a lot of red things in my scene, those reds are going to appear a lot lighter than they normally would. Now, this is, one aspect of it, but also they're all about adding contrast or really controlling the contrast, and that's because they have the opposite effect based on the opposite color on, the color wheel. So the opposite of green, any kind of pinkish, magenta, red, any kind of colors like that, it's going to make those colors appear a lot darker than they really are because it's focusing on the green light, and in a sense it's kind of blocking out some of the other color or some of the other light on those colors. It's not completely, but it's going to affect those colors as well. So with a red filter, a lot of people use this kind of filter on landscapes, anything like that. A lot of red or orange filters, and these are really good at basically blocking out the blue light. So if you're shooting a landscape and you have a big blue sky and big clouds, if you throw a red or an orange filter on there, it's going to darken that blue sky up a little bit and add a lot of contrast there, really make the clouds kind of pop and really add some contrast and depth to it. If you want to go for that same kind of effect, but just a little more subtle, a lot of people also shoot with a yellow filter as well. And this is another really popular filter, same with an orange filter for any kind of portrait work, because skin tones for the most part they're all pretty warm. There's a lot of warm colors from all different skin types, different skin tones. There's a lot of warm colors there. So if you're shooting with something like a yellow or an orange filter, it's going to be really good at just kind of lightening up that skin, smoothing things out. It's really great for hiding blemishes, where a green filter might not be so great. You can get really interesting results, and it's not to say you can't shoot portraits with a green filter, but if someone has a lot of breakouts in their skin, if they have a lot of red kind of splotchy colors, this is really going to exaggerate that because it's darkening those colors, so all of those blemishes, they're just going to stand out that much more. One thing I do want to mention is the fact that you're going to have to compensate your exposure whenever you're using colored filters, because different filters have different amount of exposure value that they're basically cutting out. So you're putting that filter in front of the lens and it's dark, so it kind of cuts down some of that light that's coming into your lens. So you're going to want to compensate for that, or otherwise you're going to have underexposed images. Now, if you're using a camera that has a built-in light meter and it's actually metering through the lens, your meter inside the camera is already going to take that into consideration, and you're not going to have to worry about it. You can just use the internal meter like you always do, and that's perfectly fine. Now, if you're shooting with a handheld meter, something like a Sekonic meter, you're gonna have to compensate for that yourself because your meter has no idea that there's a filter in front of the lens that's cutting out some of the light. Each filter is gonna require you to add a different amount of light, so it all changes from filter to filter. A lot of times it's actually listed on the front of the lens to tell you how much exposure you need to add, but some filters might say you need to add an extra stop of light, another filter might say you need to add 2 extra stops of light. That's just something you want to take into consideration, again, if you're using a handheld meter, because if the meter is actually in your camera and you're metering through the lens, you're good to go. That's really all there is to it. It's really, really simple, and like I mentioned earlier, they're usually really inexpensive, easy to find at KEH, and they're a lot of fun. So if you want to get back to basics, have some fun with black and white film, definitely check out some contrast filters. There's all kinds of them available at KEH.com. And if you guys have any questions for me, please just leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer whatever I can, and I'll see you guys in the next video.